Hey guys, it's Maymay, and today we start with our Scrapbooking with Me boutique design team project. And the big focus on this one is going to be this Tim Holtz folio. Now this is the big guy. There is a smaller one and a large one. I've been doing some research online on these things. And this one is about 10 by 12. Something like that, because it depends on how you fold these guys as to how wide it is. But let me show you what this is. This is this cool little folio with these little elastic bands, and when you open it up, it's very heavy chipboard. When you open it up, you have these flaps that open. Do you see those? And then you can design. Now, I put out a little question on Facebook not long ago, and the question was, how would you like to see this? Would you like to see it as a mini album or a card organizer? And a lot of you said you'd like to see a card organizer. That was kind of the more popular. But the way I'm going to do this, you could easily turn this into a mini album. So we're going to do a card organizer because I need one. I have a billion cards that need to be organized. And when I say organizer, what I mean is I'm going to make it into a 12-month card organizer, so you can kind of have a little sheet to say whose birthday is this month and put the cards in there for them. So it'll be like that. It'll be like a useful card organizer for each, like a planner for your cards. So we're going to get started. The first thing I'm going to do is move these guys out of my way. My workspace is too small for those guys. I don't want to take them off because I'm going to use them, but I'm going to move them out of the way. And we're going to create a spine. I'm going to be working inside these areas here. This is the fold of this and the fold of this, and I'll be working on this flat area. Now, I'm going to be utilizing that binding system that I love so much, which is the slot binding system. And if you'll notice, I have about 9 inches of workable space here. So what I've decided to do is do a 2-inch binder and a 7-inch page. So that way all of this will be the bottom page, and then my top pages will kind of stagger their way up, and they'll be 7 inches. All that'll make sense as we get going. Now, this folio comes with this hinge system. I plan to use this somewhere, but I played with it and thought, for the big heavy pages, I think I need to use something a little bit different. This didn't quite do what I wanted. One of the reasons is when I folded it in half, this stitching was in my way. And I had a lot of thoughts about I could take the stitching out, blah, blah, blah. But I think I can use this somewhere else and make it useful. So we're just going to put this aside for now. Now, because I have my measurements pretty much figured out, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start by making the binding system. Now, this is some of the paper from the paper pack that comes with this kit this month, the October kit. And it's Teresa Collins paper. It's really beautiful. It's the Life Emporium. And here's what I did. I cut a piece 2 inches by 11 inches, and then this, recognize this, that says cola, if you can see the whole thing. This is some chipboard from my stash. If you don't know, I saved those Coke boxes, those 12-pack or 24-pack boxes, and then I use that for chipboard, especially when I'm going to cover it and you're not going to see it. So I cut these two to match. The reason I did, if you've ever seen the slot binding before, and I'll put some videos below for you to see how that works, just in case this doesn't explain it well. It's usually just a piece of paper and you use it as your slot binding, but I want a little more stability. So I'm going to take these two and adhere them together so I can get a good adhesion on those. Now, I never use spray adhesive, but I had some from either a project or someone sent me. I can't remember how I got this, but I have this Elmer spray adhesive, and I thought this would be really quick and easy for this part of the project. So I'm going to spray it with this multi-purpose permanent adhesive, or not. Okay, so I'm going to spray it with this. This allows for repositioning. It dries permanent. It's a fast tack, and it dries clear. It also has a wide nozzle. Now use this in a very well ventilated area and spritz it up. I have it laying on some wax paper because I don't like how this stuff goes everywhere, and it does. Now then, I'm just going to put my other piece directly on top and cover that up. Just get that all good and covered and press down. And now, because I hate sticky adhesive, I think I have contained it pretty good all on this paper. So I'm going to mash this together. And I'm going to give that a second to kind of settle. While that's settling, before we start the making the slits and the slots and things in it, I'm going to go ahead and work on pages. So this is some craft cardstock that's 8.5 by 11. I was sent this by a sweet viewer named Judy. I appreciate it so much. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this to make pages for my card organizer. And I told you the measurement I wanted was 7 inches wide, and I'm going to make them 10.5 inches tall. The reason I decided on 7, it was a good measurement for inside that folio, but also typically the biggest card I send is going to be a 6x6 card, and that way I'll have room to put a 6x6 card in the slot. I don't usually go any bigger than that, so if you did, you might have to store it in a different way, but for this, I'll be able to put A2, 6x6, 5x7, all inside of there. Okay, so I'm going to cut these down to 7 by 10.5. Now you will need 12 of these. The way I'm making this, I'll need 12. I'll show you how you can adjust it if you don't want to do it, but I'm going to use 12 pieces of the craft cardstock. Okay, so these are the 1.5-inch strips that come off the side of your paper when you're cutting them down to 7 inches. Don't get rid of these. We're going to use these later because I'm going to do a slight variation to our binding system for this one, so don't get rid of them. We'll need them. Alright, so I have 12 pieces cut 7 by 10.5, and that gets me the page size I'm looking for. Now we're going to make pockets for these guys. Okay, so here is one sheet, 7 by 10.5. This is a regular piece of cardstock, and I'm going to use it to make these pockets. I should be able to get 2 pockets from one piece of the cardstock. Now, I don't have enough of the paper in my stack to be able to use the designer paper to make these pockets, so I'm not going to. I'm going to use the designer paper as embellishment, and that way my pages will be this. They'll just match, okay? And then I can use the paper anywhere I want to have it, you know, showing. So my pages will be very simple, but then when it's time to embellish, I can embellish on them. So this is the page, and what you're going to do is you're going to cut this page in half, which will make it 5.5, okay? So let me do that real quick. Now this page is 7 inches, okay? So we have 1.5 inches wider pockets. So to keep from having to cut and also to give me a good stability on the turn, we're going to score these using this whole piece. So all you're going to do is cut 6 pages in half. So there's my first one. I'm going to go ahead and cut my other ones in half. So here we go. This will be all my pockets. And because we're kind of working in assembly line fashion, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to score these assembly lines. This way I'm only bringing my scoreboard out one time and not having to bring it out for, you know, each page. So here's how we're going to score. The first score line is going to be at 5 inches, okay? So score 5 inches. This is the bottom of the pocket, all right? So you're going to put this in portrait and score at 5 inches. So I'm going to do that with all of them. I like to do that because then I know I'm only remembering one measurement at a time instead of trying to remember, you know, okay, the side is at this and then this side is at that. This just lets me remember 5 inches. So now I have all these scored at the 5-inch mark. Now I'm going to go through and score all of them 3/4 of an inch in. So on this one it'll be at 7 3/4. And I'm going to do that on all of them. Okay, so I've scored them all at 7 3/4. Now I need to score them at 3/4. So I'm just going to go right back through all of them and score them at 3/4 of an inch. Just like that. And then I'll be scored on this side, and this side. I'm going to cut where these intersect. I'm going to cut this one score line right there just to separate those two. And I'm going to do that to all the pieces. And here's what I would suggest, because it doesn't have to be perfect. Stack up as many as you can comfortably go through with your scissors and do them together. So just snip to the score line and snip. It just releases them so we can fold them later. Alright, we are scored, cut, and ready for the next step, which is adding adhesive. The adhesive I'm going to use is this score tape that comes in the kit. It's a 1/4 inch score tape. And I am going to apply it in 2 places on each one of them. Well, 3 places. Let me show you. The first place is along the base, and I'm going to apply it in between these score lines. Let me put it down and then you'll be able to see that. It will go between that part that we cut away. So you don't need any more than that there. Then on these, you're going to put it in a different spot. You're going to put this at the bottom and then you're going to flip this over and your adhesive here goes on this side. This will all make sense as we get going. And you're only going to put it to that edge where this folds back. Okay? So let's look at it. Your bottom goes on one side, then these go on the opposite side. The reason is this will fold up, those will fold in. That'll make sense as we go. So I'm going to go ahead and go through and do all the bottom, and then I'll go through and do the other sides. If you do it this way, it'll help you to remember not to put it on the same side. So do one part first and then come back and do the other part. Some people learn things the hard way. That is me. So we're all done on the bottom and the sides. Now here's a little tip for you. Stack them all up on top of each other and then rub the side to burnish that tape down through all of them all at one time. Any cheater method, right? And you're just burnishing it down to make sure it's down there. Trust me, that'll save you in the long run. Alright, let's take one of these and one sheet and get started. So what I'm going to do first is go ahead and score this with the adhesive coming inward. So that way I know I have a good score on it. I'm actually folding it, not scoring it. Going to remove this adhesive strip. Just like so. And then I'm going to line these two up. Now I do not want to put this over my score line. I want to put it right at my score line, but slightly below it, so that I have plenty of free room for that to fold on itself, okay? So make sure you don't put it right to it. So this way when you fold up, see how freely that does, and it doesn't move that paper at all. That's what you're looking for. Yep. This is where we'll get rid of those. I'm going to use this sideways so you can see it. I'll be tucking these in, okay? And then these will fold up, and this will make sense in a second. So now you're just going to remove this backer. So I've removed the backer, and now I'm going to tuck these little guys in. These little flaps, just like so, okay? Fold these over. You can do this before you take that strip off too. I probably should have, I just didn't think about it. But I'm really not scoring these very tight because I want them to have a little bit of lift. Alright, so now I will take them, push them forward. I'm going to press in the center first and then let this line up on this edge, like so. And then this one on this edge, like so. And see how that gives me that little pocket? A little bit of lift. And that's what I wanted. I want that lift. So I'm going to go in here. And the reason for that is now you have room to put your cards in. If you did this too tight, you'd struggle to get more than one or two cards in there. So that way you have plenty of room. Okay, so do that to all of these pages. So I'll do another one with you. So we have our page. Going to fold this guy up and score it. Okay. I'm going to take this adhesive backer off. This is so much faster when you do it assembly line style. It just seems like it to me anyway. Lay this down. Take my paper and line it up, just clearing that score line. Press that into place. These guys get folded inward. The reason I kept these is because I just feel like it'll help me to keep things from falling out. Like if I put small things in those pockets, that way they won't fall out on me. You could cut them away if they're in your way. You don't have to leave them. I just left them. Okay, release this backing. And this one. And turn this toward me. Fold this over. Okay, press in the center because you really don't want to adhere anything down just yet till you get everything lined up. Then press this guy down. And you'll get that pop of a pocket. Score it and burnish your adhesive at the same time. Alright, so now we have two of these done. I will go through and do the rest of them just like that. Okay, crafters, so here are all of our pages done. Nice pockets, and there are 12. Now, before I put these together and show you how we will turn 12 into 6, I want to do the binding because I think this will make more sense when I start putting these together if you see how that's going to work. And I think I've given it enough time to set up and cure for us to start to work with it. I'm going to need to put 6 hinges into this because I have 6 pages that need a place to sit, okay? This is 2 inches wide. I'm going to want a little bit of free space on either side. So here you can see I've marked it 1/4 inch in and 1/4 inch in. Now because my ruler lets me see through, I'm going to come to the center, but I'm not going to mark the middle. I'm going to come 1/8 inch in from the middle and 1/8 inch out from the middle and mark it. Okay, so that gives me 4 pages. Now I just need to split the difference here to get 6. So I'm just going to go to the middle of those. So these measurements are not going to be the perfect measurements, okay? So I'm going to do the same thing on the opposite end so I can line this all up correctly. So I have 1/4 of an inch in, 1/4 of an inch in, okay? Not mark the middle, but go 1/8 of an inch away and 1/8 of an inch out, and then split the difference on either side. So this gives me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there will be a slight difference. I'm not gonna sweat the small stuff. Now I'm going to line up this mark I made with the mark that I made that coincides with it at the bottom and make a light pencil line. Okay. Same thing here. And notice that I'm making the mark all the way on the page. That'll matter in a few minutes. So all the way down the strip we're doing that. We're not just doing it from dash to dash. I'm going above and below it. Now I only had one dash line that wasn't really lined up well that I had to adjust. But I made the adjustment and it's no big deal. Okay, so you can see that these lines are not evenly spaced. It's not going to matter when we get it done. Not going to matter. Okay, now what you want to do is decide how far down your pages need to go. Now remember, I cut my pages 10.5 inches. So this piece is 11 inches, so I have 1/4 of an inch on either side to work with. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to make a line that is 1/4 of an inch in. Just going to mark it on both sides here and then make the line. Like so. And then come down 1/4 of an inch. In the past I've done this with the scoreboard instead of the pencil, but for this one I'm doing the pencil because I'm using the thicker piece and I want to be able to see these lines really well. Okay, so this will be our spine. Now I'm going to take my crocodile, and everywhere those intersect, I will put that into my smaller crocodile hole and punch a hole. When I get this done, I'll show you what I'm doing. Okay. So you can see here that all the lines intersected and I poked a hole everywhere that they intersected. Okay, do the same on the other side. Now we're going to do the part where you'll be glad you have the lines. I'm going to take my ruler using the metal edge, my X-Acto knife, my strip, and from hole to hole on the line I drew, I'm going to cut a slice in this. And I'll probably run across it a couple times. I'll do it one time kind of lightly, then the next time a little heavier. Until I get through it. Now I had to run across it several times because it's thick now with my chipboard, but you'll end up with this. Okay? So, and I kind of messed that up, but you won't see it. No biggie. Alright, I'm going to keep going, doing that all the way on every single line. Okay, so now you can see this is what I have. All of my little slices done. Isn't that neat? So you remember these strips we talked about? You're going to need 6 of these. Our page is 10.5 inches long, and I want to have a little bit of wiggle room on either end so that these can kind of stick into the page, which you'll see in a minute, a little easier. So I'm going to cut these down to 10 inches. The reason is that'll give me 1/4 inch of leeway on either side. So I'm just going to lay these in, and I'm going to cut 1 inch off of them because they are 11 inches. Alright, so now I have these strips, and now I'm going to get my scoreboard. Now these are 1.5 inches, okay? I'm going to score them at 1 inch, each one of them. This will give me 1/2 inch flap to tuck into our binding, and it'll give me 1 inch to hold my page, because my page is going to have more weight on it because it's going to be holding the page with the cards in it. So I'm scoring it at 1 inch. So I got those all scored, and now I want to add my adhesive to them. So I'm going to put it on the 1/2 inch score section. Not the 1 inch, but the 1/2 inch. Okay, so we have our strips and we have our binding. Now what I want to do is I'm going to stick these in and stick them down, and I'll show you that in 1 second. But here's something I want to point out. These are going to be slightly long on one side. We're going to have to trim them off. The reason for that is I didn't want to cut these down. I didn't want to do any more cutting than I had to. So we'll just have to cut one piece, but that saved us from having to cut 6 new pieces at a different size. All that will make sense as we go to. Peel this away. Okay, this one we're going to slide into our slot and we're going to center it. Remember, we cut this a little bit short so our pages would have a little room. You're going to center it between those holes, and you want to not put it on top of your score line. You want your score line to come right to your little piece, right to your binding strip. Now, as you can see, this one's too long. I'm not going to stress about that. We're just going to cut it away. So I'm just going to take my ruler, lay it down here with it, and cut that away. So see, now it's nice and neat, and our hinge will fold. Okay? So now we're going to attach everything else in. Shouldn't have to trim these now. These should be just fine. So once you have this first one done, you're just going to line your second hinge up to it. Take your score line to the hinge, but not under it. Okay? To the hinge, but not under it. Press that hinge between. Then you can fold this up and over. The most fiddly part you'll do is this. Not a big deal. The rest is just, you know, the same thing over and over again, and you'll get into a rhythm on this. And once you get this done, you'll be happy because you needed it to be good and sturdy, so it's kind of thick. Okay? So make sure this is all separated, and it is. Now, I'm not folding these before I put them in. I think it makes it easier for me to slide them in if I don't fold them first. So that's why you don't see me fold them until after I get them in. Just take your time. This is going to be something you're going to use for a long time, so no need to rush. Now we're to our last one, and I'm going to send it in the same way, in the same direction, so that we only have to cut off one. So you just want to line it up. And press it in place. Okay, then you can fold. Alright, now I want to press all these down nice and snug. So they're going to go in both directions. See that? Now I'm going to flip it over. What I want to do back here for extra stability is I'm going to cut another strip of this chipboard and sandwich it together and glue that really good and snug. Okay, so you see what this is? I am going to use some Scotch Quick Dry adhesive for this part. Okay, so I've got that glue on there really thick, and now I'm going to add this piece. This part will be messy. You'll have to clean up afterwards. I just think it's going to be needed. I want it to be nice and sturdy for a long time. Okay, so I have manipulated this and rubbed this and wiped it away, any extra glue, because it is kind of messy, but I'm telling you, I want it to be sturdy. I do not want this to fall apart. So you can see how thick this is, and now it just needs to dry, so I'm going to set it aside to dry. Now let's go back to our pages. This is where we're going to attach these two together that will then go onto our hinges that we created, okay? So we're going to put adhesive along 2 sides. Only 2 sides, okay? So, let me get the adhesive out. I'm going to run adhesive here on this bottom and here on the top. Now, I'm going to make a pocket page out of this. And I tell you all the time to make sure you don't use tape for these pocket pages. But this page is going to be pretty big, and I don't think, the only thing I would use it for is if I wanted to put some long envelopes in it or something, and I'm not going to stress about these edges. This is not something where people will be pulling out photos and looking at it or whatever. This is what I will be pulling out cards from. So I'm going to go ahead and use the tape for this, and I want to go ahead and burnish that. It felt a little loose. Alright, now let's take this away. Just like this. Okay, so I've exposed that adhesive on 2 sides. Now I'm going to line this other page up with it. Just like this, just lining up the edges and the sides and press those into place. Now what this has done for me is it has created a side here that needs to be closed, and the hinge is going to do that, and then we will have a pocket here if we want to put anything inside of it. Now before I go any further, I'm going to take my hole punch, my scallop circle punch, it's a 2-inch punch, and I'm going to come right here to the center and line this up and punch it so I have a place to grab things out of it. It's funny, it looks like somebody took a bite out of it. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and I'll get it out in a minute. Attach all these pages together so that I have this portion and these pieces together. Okay guys, so all 6 of my pages are put together with the flap here, and now we will adhere them to the hinge. So our hinge has been sitting aside to dry. It is so firm. Can you hear it? It's really firm, which is good. That's what we wanted. And now what I'm going to do is put adhesive on the hinge itself. Now just to save myself some time, I have a very wide tape, which is almost 3/4 of an inch wide. I'm going to use it here. This does not come in your kit, so if you want to use your other one, you can. You'll just have to use more strips of it. But I just want to save some time for the video. Alright, so I've exposed one of the lines of adhesive, and I'm going to take my page, and I'm going to use this open edge, and I'm going to slip it onto, I'm trying to do this where you guys can see it, there we go. I'm going to slip it onto this hinge, put the hinge down as far as it will go, okay, put my page in as far as it will reach to the spine, and seal that. Now I'll just come over here and expose this one. Like so, and then close that down too. So now we have one page attached. See that? Love it. Now I'm going to do that to all of these. Okay, so this is the last one I'm putting on, so I'm going to show you how I'm doing it. So I'm peeling one side away, opening up the side of our book, of our page, sliding that hinge in, and I'm lining up the bottom of the books as good as I can, or the pages as good as I can, and then pressing this page in, and pressing that down. And I've already got the tape on the inside, and I just release it like so, then press that down. So now we have this all bound together. See how that works? Neat, huh? Now we just need to put this into our folio. Okay. So I'm going to seal this binding down here to this inside of our folio. And you see how that's going to do the little cascade for us? I think that's pretty neat. And as you use this, it's going to wear down more. Plus it needs to be pressed in really well. I'm going to use my same adhesive here because it is very sticky and it's very wide. And it'll make this go kind of quick. If you had time, or if you wanted to really wait for it, you could even use a wet adhesive here, or a hot glue would probably work, because this is like cardboard on top of cardboard. Go on and release this one out of my way. So I can add another one here. Okay. Now I'm going to pull these off. And then I'm going to put some at the ends here so I can make sure I have plenty. Because this part I want to stick very well. It is so sticky. Okay. Now I'm going to place this down, centering it right at that fold of the folio, and press it down. press these around. Okay, so everything is pressed down and into place, and now we have this. Isn't that neat how that's working so far? Okay, so then when you close this up, it'll all stay inside the folio. Of course, you have these flaps that fold down like this, and then this, and then this, and the little elastics close it up, okay? So we have a few more things to do, but I'm going to stop here. So if you want to follow along with me, if you go ahead and get to this point, then you'll be ready to go. And I want to point out something. This looks an awful lot like a paper bag, doesn't it? I wonder if you could do it with that. I think you might could. I don't know how deep your pocket would be with a paper bag, but that might work. So anyway, that's where this one's going to stop today. And when we get back together, we will work on these flaps and decide what they will do, because they need to do something, right? And then we'll work on decorating. All right, guys, thanks so much. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.